kind of odd for me because because I have to hit all these buttons, and this is not what I'm used to. Okay, well, we'll get this going. I want to say hey to everybody. It's wonderful to be back. Oh, wow. We have been missing in action for a month. 4 weeks, I think. Last week was for the 4th week. Now, I have to say this. There's a very good chance that I might cough. As long as I don't talk real loud, I can get through the I can get through it. I'm finding out on Sunday mornings it's very tough to do that. But excuse me. So I'll do the best that I can to make it the whole hour. But I don't know, because I get a little impassioned and then I try to project my voice and it gets worse. But I am feeling better. That's the worst thing I have to deal with right now is this crazy cough. It's like I got a tickle in my throat and it won't go away. But the COVID was not fun. I just want to tell you that. I was in bed for 9 days. Had the craziest cravings. I'm telling you. I craved fruit. What's that? Fruit stuff in a can. Fruit salad or whatever it is. I don't know. But I just craved that like crazy. There was one day I ate 6 cans of that. I would have eaten. They bought me 12 cans. I would have eaten all of them. I had to curb my enthusiasm for that. But I didn't lose my sense of smell or taste. Matter of fact, it got ratcheted up about 200%. Everything just tasted so good. Although I wouldn't recommend it just so you can taste things better. And crazy craving. I craved steak. That was weird. I'm not generally a steak guy. Every once in a while, maybe, but I am feeling better. My wife did not get it. My grandson did. I gave it to my grandson. He kicked it in a couple of days, and it was like not even a bump in the road for him. But so anyway, here I am, for better or for worse. I don't know about richer, but maybe for poorer. But I'm here. Fruit cocktail. There you go. So, glad you're all here. Hey, we're going to talk about something today. I'll get back to what I was at before, but there's some things I want to do going into that, and I just have not felt like being able to get online or on the computer and work things out and get things going. So I want to tell you we're going to do that. I want to say hey to several people as they join us, and probably won't have a whole lot till we get back in the swing of things, but share this video if you would. Somebody maybe tag John Raymond Garcia. I try to do it and it doesn't work on this end of it. If you can do that, and we're going to talk about these Church of Christ or Futurists tonight, and got some inspiration. I was on Facebook. Let me find my phone. See if I can find this comment. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, but I had a minute to look at it, and somebody had made a post. Let's see if this comes up. It was the last thing I looked at. They made a post, and this post said something. It was something about preterism, and nope, it's gone. So one of these Church of Christ preachers responds, and he says, preterism is, I really wish I could remember what he said, because it was actually rather comical. So essentially he said, preterism is just, it's just false, and I don't see it now. I don't have any idea how to get back to it. It's just false, and it's ridiculous, or something like that. And the one thing that preterists do is they redefine all the terms in the Bible. Okay, let me point something out. The futurist, whether he's a Church of Christer or a Baptist or Pentecostal, doesn't matter. Okay, the futurist, but especially our brethren, the Church of Christers, and I'm starting really to see, especially the more some of these people on Facebook that claim to be members of the Church of Christ. they act like the synagogue of Satan. They're horrible people. I'm just saying, okay? Just saying. I pray for them. I wish that they would change their mind and their attitude, but they're not good examples of what the Lord's church is. And it's not just Church of Christers, but they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. So they've got this attitude that they don't want to listen, they don't want to talk about anything, they don't want to consider anything. And here's the reason why. This isn't just a Church of Christ, or this is just people in general, I think. And what they do is they've been raised a certain way, okay? So this is how they've been raised, and sorry, I got to fix my camera here. Got a little messed up, maybe. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll work with that. So this is how they were raised. They were raised that I'm a member of the Church of Christ, so that makes me right. I can't be wrong because we're the church that was created 2,000 years ago on the day of Pentecost, and we're exactly like that church. They really think that. Let me see. Scroll up here. They really think that 2,000 years ago they met at 9:30 for Bible study and 10:30 for worship, and then again at 7 o'clock on Sunday night for Sunday evening worship. And that's not how it worked in the first century. And there are a lot of divergent beliefs between the modern day so-called Church of Christ and any, you name any denomination, okay? There's a lot of divergent beliefs between the first century church that we read about in the New Testament and these denominations. The main one being, and a huge one being, the simple fact that Jesus said he was going to return in their lifetime. And then the apostles started preaching and teaching that. And the brethren in the first century believed that Jesus was going to return in their lifetime. So, guess what? Why aren't people believing and teaching that today? Well, it's because they don't want that. They would rather believe a lie than the truth. So we're going to talk about heaven and earth. I want to show you how the futurists redefine heaven and earth. Okay, so I need to pull this up here. Oh, where's my cursor? Because I want to show you a passage or two. And I forgot all this stuff over here to transition. That's okay. So, where are you tonight? Okay, I want to go to Isaiah chapter 51, okay? So I'll show you a few things here in Isaiah 51. So I'm just going to pull this up here. Oh, well, I'm very rusty, okay? Being away from this for a month is really worked on me a little bit. Okay, so I'll just pull up the New American Standard Bible. So in Isaiah chapter 51, I want to show you something here. So let me make this a large screen and put it like this. Let's do this. Okay, so for my wife, don't look at the screen because this will make her sick. She got vertigo, guys. So be praying for her. This is really messing with her bad. Isaiah 51, verse 13 to 16 is where we're gonna go here. And here it says that you have forgotten the Lord your Maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundations of the earth, that you fear continually all day long because of the fury as he makes ready to destroy. And where is the rage of the oppressor? Oh, that's a little too big. The exile will soon be set free and will not die in the dungeon. It's actually a lot too big. Okay. Wow, something's not right here. Okay, this is just going to have to be good enough. The exile will soon be set free and will not die in the dungeon, nor will his bread be lacking. For I am Lord, the Lord your God. I'll get this squared away in a minute. Who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. The Lord of armies is his name. And I have put my words in your mouth, and have covered you with the shadow of my hand to establish the heavens and to found the earth and to say to Zion, you are my people. Okay, so this is Yahweh, okay? And he's saying, listen, here's what has happened. If we were to take this just and I'm showing you this. Let me do this so it doesn't mess you up while I'm typing this in. So let me do this. I say the reason I'm showing you this is because we need to look at some of the terminology here. Okay, and we can do this in lots of different things. So it doesn't. We could do Matthew 24, you name it. 2 Peter 3, it's all going to work out the same. But this will be in Hebrew. So let me get here to. So sorry about causing people to go into convulsions here. So we're going to verse 13. This is at Bible Hub, okay? So you can go to Bible Hub, you can check this out, and we'll show you some of these things. So here we're going to look up this word. Did I look up the right thing? Isaiah 51, yep. Okay, so I'm looking for. Okay, let's look at this word for sea. Okay, so I'm gonna open this up here for you. I'm gonna show you what this word sea means. This yam. All right, sea, seacoast, seashore, so forth. These are how it's used in the New American Standard. Basically, it's gonna name the Mediterranean. Blah blah blah. It's going to go through the Red Sea, the Dead Sea, the Sea of Galilee. Can you see here where I'm looking at? I can enlarge this. More generally, a sea opposed to earth. In definition 5, a mighty river, the Nile, could also be referred to as a sea. A great basin in temple or court called the sea. The shore of the sea, the sand of the seashore, and so forth. But here's the issue with this, and here's the problem. So when we go back over here, no, that's not what I want, and we look here about the sea, he says in verse 13, that you have forgotten the Lord your Maker, who stretched out the heavens and laid the foundation of the earth. You continually fear all day long of the oppressor, and he makes he makes rage to destroy, and the rage of the oppressor. The exile will soon be set free, and so forth. So we come up here and see in verse 15 that this is the Lord your God who stirs up the sea, so that the waves roar. Okay, what is he talking about here? So when he stirs up the sea, this is the same terminology that we read of in Revelation. This great sea and so forth. And theologically speaking, we can come to an understanding, and this is just a quick brief thing. I can't go into everything in depth, or I won't even get through this point. Theologically speaking, we come to understand that the term sea represents the Gentiles. Oftentimes, not every single time, sometimes it's actually a sea. But when we look at let me find my cursor, we'll come back over here, and we look at the way the word is used, it's defined as the sea. So if we're going to be very literal, and we're saying, well, this is how the term sea is defined, then it has to mean a literal physical sea, something of water, every single time it's used. And we know that that is not the case, right? In Revelation, the term sea is used in an apocalyptic way. It has symbology. It's not used in a literal sense. Now, let's do something fun, okay? So back here in... let's go to our interlinear for Hebrews. Well, let me switch back over here. So if you look in verse 13, this is Isaiah 51. Okay, that you have forgotten the Lord your Maker, who stretched out the heavens. So and laid the foundations of the earth. All right. So let's come over here and let's just look these up. Right. So this was in verse 13. I think, right? You gotta kind of read this backwards. Let's see, divided. Okay, so here we are. So, what is the definition of heaven? Okay, so look at the definition. The definition. Oh, let me expand this a bit. Okay, so the definition here. Okay, this is Shamayim. I think close enough, and this is from Strong's, and it is defined as heaven, sky. Now, what you can understand from this definition is that heaven is defined as heaven, where God is, right? Or it could be the literal sky. So that's the literal definition of this idea of heaven, right? So what's Brown, Driver, and Briggs say, right? So let's check it out. So, well, they really just give you a little of the background. But it's visible heavens. Let's try this. Visible heavens, sky where the stars are. Okay. Place where the fowl fly. Okay, so it could be, I know I'm skipping through some of this. It could be the abode of God, which this is all we just spoke of just a moment ago. Then, of course, they want to get into the Elijah thing, but don't get me started on that one. So, what is the heaven that's being talked about here in Isaiah chapter 51? It says that he stretched out the heavens and laid the foundation of the earth. Now, if we go over here to look at earth, sorry for the I got distracted here. So okay, I am so backwards trying to get my head clear. Believe it or not, still there we are. So we get this thing going on in your head, and I'm still trying to get that cleared up. Anyway, so this is the Hebrew word eretz, and it means earth or land. Okay, that's the definition. Let's look at a few more of these things. Land, earth as opposed to heaven, the whole earth, inhabitants of the earth. Wait a minute. So here they actually admit that earth is not always, as they give in their definition, earth and land, right? They admit that it can be the inhabitants of the earth. We see that in Genesis 6, and there's a few passages there that you can look at. Also, earth can be a country or a territory. It could be a district or a region, a tribal territory, a piece of ground, especially the land of Canaan. Wait a minute. Earth is used to represent specifically the land of Canaan or Israel? Isn't that interesting? It could be the inhabitants of the land. But then again, they go right back to it. It's being used of ground, soil, so forth. Now, and there's a lot here. And again, like I said, we don't have time to go through all these. But so when we look at this idea of earth and what earth is, and we look at heaven, what heaven is, in its literal definitions, then we're going to just be completely and totally messed up. Because if you've got this physical planet, and this is what most people want to use this definition of heaven and earth for. Okay, so you've got this physical planet, earth, gi, or eretz in the Hebrew, or eretz, I don't know how to say it. And you've got the literal definition that it's this ball of dirt. You got a real problem if you're going to stick to that. I asked the editor of a major brotherhood publication. Is heaven and earth always used in a literal sense? And immediately he answered me yes. So you know what my question was? What's the new heavens and the new earth? And he just stopped and he thought for a second and he realized he just put his foot in his mouth. Because if the new heavens and the new earth is a literal physical planet, what happened to the old one? See, this is where the futurist redefines, and they gladly do so. And they redefine passages. They do not consider audience relevance. They do not consider how the terminology was used. I want to say hey to a few people here because I haven't been able to do this. So then I'll get right back at this. So, there are plenty of people who are listening that really need to hear this, because the Church of Christers, when I say Church of Christers, I'm not talking about the New Testament church. I'm talking about these people who have just totally destroyed it. It doesn't even resemble very much the New Testament church. But anyway, so I want to say hey to a few people here. I'm actually going to say hey to Stephen Whitsitt. Stephen, sometimes I'm not real crazy about what you say, but I do like you, so and I pray for you a lot. I want to say hey to Billy Williams. I think his wife has a birthday today, so we're very thankful for that and wishing her a happy birthday. So Billy, it's great to see you. Bill or Milford Evans, Brother Evans, absolutely fantastic to see you again. And I see Lori White. Maybe Scott Russell. Yeah, Scott Russell and Dusty Rose. Praying for you, Dusty, quite a bit, actually. So, I think that's Roy and Bobby. Great to see you guys, and if I miss anybody, I apologize about that. And before we go any further, I want to beg for prayers for Holger Neubauer and his family at the passing of his son, Ryan. My heart just simply goes out to him. I cannot fathom the pain and the loss that he and his family are feeling. I know that they are. And I just wish that there was something that I could do to help them and to take their burden away. But, and as Holger put it, there are just some things in life that it's a burden that you're the only one that can bear that. So prayers are much requested on his behalf. We love him. I love Holger. You will not find a better Christian, period. Okay? It's not gonna find anybody any better. And I want to say hey to Kenneth Rooster Morgan. Okay. And I'm not going to make a whole lot of comments here, but I will say this. The first century brethren, this is how I began this, believed that Jesus was coming back in their lifetime. The apostles taught it. You cannot find one single passage anywhere in the New Testament, or the Old Testament for that matter, but anywhere in the New Testament that places or anticipates the second coming of Christ, the return of the Lord, the return of Messiah, his coming on the clouds, okay, with his angels. You cannot find even one single passage that places that outside of the expectation of the first century generation. We're talking the apostles were preaching it. We're talking the disciples were preaching it. We're talking Jesus preached that. And if the Church of Christ today does not believe that, then they are not the Church of Christ of the first century. There you go. So, I want to get back to this idea of heaven and earth. This is what the futurists do. They got themselves in this huge pickle already. So we've looked at Isaiah 51. The reason I went there is because I wanted to show you the Hebrew words and the way that it's being used in the Hebrew. So there could be a lot of people that get really mad at me, but fine, you go ahead and get mad at me if you want. Great to see you, Chucky, by the way. But you're just getting mad at what the scriptures say. So I can deal with that. I may have to take a sip every once in a while. It does help. So it'll be easier with the straw probably. But anyway, they redefine. This is their biggest thing. The futurists, many of whom watch on a weekly basis this program, and I'm very grateful for that. They say, well, the preterist redefines all these words. And I can't tell you the amount of preachers that I've talked to. Okay, so here's one for the futurists. How long is soon? You just tell me. If you lived in the first century and Jesus said, I'm coming back soon, when would you expect that soon? The same way you would expect soon today. When General MacArthur said, I shall return, did the people in the Philippines, I think it was the Filipinos that he said that to, when he told that to them, did they have an inkling that it would be thousands of years later that he would come back? No. Now, it could have been that he meant, oh, well, I'm going to send, in a couple hundred years or 50 years or 80 years or 100, 200 years, I'm going to send a representative. I'll be dead, but I'll send a representative. Come on. We don't use it that way, neither did they. But yet, the hyperfuturist does use it that way today. So here's the pickle that they're in. If heaven and earth is literal, and I want one of you all here who hold to this false religion, I want you to answer this question. If heaven and earth is always literal, what is the new heavens and earth? Just all you got to do is answer that. Now, be careful how you answer that. Because if you say, well, it's something spiritual, then what was the old heavens and earth that it replaced? See the pickle that you're in? Hey, I was in the same pickle. There's not a one of these guys on here that can answer this. They can't answer it. They run from it. They're scared, or they just take it and they twist it, and they make a nice, pretty braid out of it. But all they did was twist the scriptures, and it doesn't look anything by the time they're done with it like it looked when it was originally penned or spoken nearly 2,000 years ago. So let's look at a thing or two here, okay? So let's just turn over to Revelation 21. We'll come back here if I don't run out of time, but Revelation 21. All right? Then I saw a new heavens, verse 1, and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth passed away. What are the new heavens and the new earth? Is it something physical? If heaven and earth is always physical, it's the physical heavens or where God is, or it's the earth is the dirt ball that we live on. Hi, Rick Brown, by the way. Good to see you. Then what are the new heavens and the new earth? So what you have to do, you have to become, and they accuse us of being Jehovah's Witnesses. Not even close. Because here's what you're teaching. You're teaching this very rigid, this wooden theology that will not bend. And you say, well, heaven and earth is always literal because that's how it's defined. Then explain why you're now Jehovah's Witness and that you believe it's going to be a new recreated heavens and earth. And that's where anyone who's not part of the 144,000 will live for eternity. Come on. That is not what the scriptures teach. It's obvious just by reading verse 1 of Revelation 21 that it's new. All you got to do is read the rest of the chapter, and it tells you that it's the new Jerusalem coming down. As a matter of fact, we'll see if we get to this. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 talks about the exact same concept. 2 Peter 3 is the exact same concept. Now, what do you think about them apples? I know there's a lot of people that don't like to hear that, and they get mad at me. But hey, I'm not here to coddle you and make you feel good and give you what you're used to on Sunday morning and going to a recitation class. I'm well past that. I just want to learn, and I just want the truth. And whatever the truth is, then that's what I want. I don't care what it is, as long as it's the truth. And when someone comes to me and says, well, you guys redefine words, all you're doing is you're guilty of fear-mongering. Because you can't answer this simple truth. What you do is you have to divert away and you have to make people afraid. Well, then if that's the case, and it is absolutely the case, when these Church of Christers that I see here from time to time accuse me of leading people to hell, of course, hell, just shows they don't understand the Scriptures. Hell is not in the Bible. Good luck finding it. You're just leading people to hell, and you're gonna pay. Who's the one who is leading people to perish? That's what the Scriptures say. I'm teaching them what Jesus taught, what the apostles taught, and what the brethren believed in the first century, before the destruction of Jerusalem. I'm teaching the exact same thing, and y'all aren't. So who's leading who where? Heaven and earth is without question used in a figurative sense. Sometimes, not every time. There's times it means dirt. There's other times it means sky. There's other times it means this is where God lives. But there are other times where it is referring to that old covenant system. And I submit to you that that's exactly what Peter was talking about in 2 Peter 3. If you don't think I'm right about that, let's just look at it real quick. So in 2 Peter 3, now keep in mind, I'm talking about how the futurist twist the Word of God and redefines words to fit their theology. Okay. Alrighty. 2 Peter 3. Ready for this? Verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burned up. Is this literal or is this spiritual? Is it figurative? Now, one of you all futurists out here, you tell us what verse 10 means. Just to type it in real quick. Is this literal? Is this figurative? Is it not the actual physical planet? Nobody's taken this, or maybe it's just a lag in my feed or something. But there's no takers here. Is this a literal physical planet that is going to be destroyed? Is this really what he's talking about? Stephen, I appreciate that, and definitely taking it all into context. So, let's talk about it. In verse 10, is he talking about a literal, physical planet being destroyed? Let me read it again, just in case. And see, we could go to, I could pull it up like we did earlier, but it would be just the same thing. If we look at heaven and we look at earth, it's going to talk about where God dwells or where the birds fly, or the earth where the dirt is. And that's going to be the definition of it. Do you always use heavens and earth, or world for that matter, in a literal wooden not figurative, literal wooden sense? Do you always do that? When's the last time one of you guys on here looked at your beloved and said, honey, you are my world. You are the heavens and the earth to me. Now, your wife should punch you square in the face if you are meaning that literal. She probably would. But she understands that you mean it in a loving way and it's figurative. Um, is that supposed to be hornets or honest? Sorry, Stephen, it's a typo. I have no doubt, and I gladly affirm that the entire world was flooded. There's no question about that. I think it was a global deluge. There's a lot of people that disagree with me on that, but I think it was a global deluge. There's no question about that. So here's my question. Was the earth destroyed, Stephen? What was destroyed? We'll get to that. Okay, so now let's do this. So I see that he probably ran, I'm guessing. What's his name? Scott Russell. He says, ugh. And I'm not calling him out. I'm just saying, let's be honest about this. Is it a literal physical planet in verse 10? But the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat. So I'm just going to get to the punchline here. If this is a literal physical planet, Paul was totally wrong in his preaching. Peter was completely and totally wrong in his preaching. And Jesus was totally wrong in teaching them to preach what they preached and write what they wrote. As I said a moment ago, there is not one single passage in the New Testament, in the Scriptures anywhere, that places the expectation of the coming of the Lord outside of that first century generation. And more specifically, beyond the destruction of Jerusalem, what we now know, in retrospect, was in 70 A.D. Not one single passage. Not even this one. And I'm going to show that to you. Look at 2 Peter chapter 3. And if you look at verse 14, and what does he say here? Therefore, beloved, since you look for these things, be diligent to be found by him in peace, spotless and blameless, and regard the patience of our Lord as salvation, just as also our beloved Paul, according to the wisdom given to him, wrote to you. Paul wrote it, Peter wrote about it, and they expected it to happen in their lifetime because under inspiration, that's what Peter was teaching them, that's what Paul was teaching them, and that's what Jesus taught them to teach. In the Great Commission, what do you think Jesus was telling them to do? He told them to go out and preach and to teach every living creature about the gospel. If you think that the gospel, for the Church of Christers out there, if you think that the gospel is just hear, believe, repent, confess, be baptized, and live faithful, you have missed a whole lot of it. That's just the beginning of it. Actually, the beginning started before your 6 steps that you love so much. Right? It began with prophecy and the fulfillment of prophecy. If prophecy and the prophecies of Jesus were not fulfilled and the prophecies concerning him were not fulfilled, then Jesus, get this, is not the Messiah. And we shouldn't be listening to him. Now, we need to go back to that old law and follow that old covenant system. The heaven and earth that the futurist really desperately tries to redefine today is clearly illustrated for us in the Old Testament what it actually means. Now let's look at 2 passages talking about this. So we're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 31. Deuteronomy 31. What did they believe about it? How did they understand it? You know, we're talking Jesus was a Hebrew. You think, well, they were Greeks. No, they weren't. They lived in a Greek society, but they rejected Greek culture. They found it very distasteful, very sinful. The Greek culture followed the gods of Psalm 82 and various versions that they had perverted in that. That was the Greek culture, and they despised it. And you want to say, well, they were all Greeks. No, they weren't. They spoke Greek because that's where they lived. They thought Hebrew. So we look at these Greek terms that they used, like gi for earth. And they put a Hebrew meaning on a Greek term. Now, you're never going to find that in these definitions that we look at, because they totally ignore that. But in Deuteronomy chapter 31, the Hebrew thought process defines heaven and earth as the old covenant system. What do you think about that? Well, let me show you this. I love this. I love how people just talk about some spiritual two-stepping. You wait and see what goes on here. Okay. Verse 24. This Deuteronomy 31:24. It came about when Moses finished writing the words of this law in a book until they were complete. What were the words that he wrote? The law of Moses, the Torah, the first 5 books, and he wrote these down. Remember, he didn't write Genesis through Malachi. He wrote the first 5. Okay? So he wrote these words, and he put them in a book until they were complete. This was his job in life, and then he died shortly after this, right? But in verse 25 it says, Then Moses commanded the Levites who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, saying, Take this book of the law and place it beside the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may remain there as a witness against you. Okay, put it in the ark, leave it alone, and leave it there so it could be as a witness against you. Verse 27, For I know your rebellion and your stubbornness. Behold, while I am still alive with you today, you have been rebellious against the Lord. How much more than after my death? Assemble to me all the elders of your tribes and your officers, that I may speak these words. What words? Speak these words in their hearing, and call the heavens and the earth to witness against them. What was a witness against them? What was a witness against them according to what the Spirit directed Moses to write? From verse 24 to 28 up to this point. What was the witness against them? It was the law of Moses. That was the witness against them. And he calls that witness, the law, this covenant, the heavens and the earth. This is not the literal heavens being given a mouth. I mean, you got a lot of problems here, right? You got a lot of problems here if you're going to say that every time heaven and earth is used, by definition, it's used in such a way that, excuse me, getting a little too worked up. It's used in such a way that it is literal, and you can't break your tradition of seeing it that way. It's used in a spiritual sense. It's used in a metaphorical sense. It's used in an illustrative sense. So what were the heavens and earth that we just read about here? Now what about that? In chapter 32, verse 1, Give ear, O heavens, and let me speak. Let the earth hear the words of my mouth. So the literal heavens grows a mouth and an ear, and the literal earth grows an ear. No. This is illustrative of the sons of Israel. This is illustrative of Israel. This is illustrative of the Jews and that covenant system. And so it is used time and time and time again, without fail, without question. If you were a Jew living in the first century, when you heard Peter talking about this heavens and earth that's going to be destroyed and a new heavens and a new earth be remade, you would never, ever believe that it was something physical. And yet, the Church of Christers of the 21st century believe, they don't know what to believe. Is it physical? Is it not? What's that mean? I don't see either, and I don't see anybody, any of the Church of Christers stepping up to the podium to answer the question. What's going on with that? Matter of fact, I haven't been able to read all this because I'll just get totally distracted. But the only person I see making any comments is Stephen Whitsitt. What's up with that? What's up with that? You all in the Church of Christ, and I come from the Church of Christ. I come from this background. Here's how I was raised. I was raised that you were, and I need a drink because I know I'm going to get on a bit of a soapbox. I think it's Ezekiel 43 about the restoration of the garden. I might be wrong, but it might be 37. Here's how I was raised. I was raised that you were born innocent, which I still agree with. You get to an age where you make a conscious decision whether or not to follow the Lord or reject Him, which I still agree with. I was taught that a person must be baptized for the remission of their sins. I still agree with that, and I still teach that. I teach it a lot, not different today, but a lot different today. I just see it. This is in HD, better than HD now versus how I used to see it. I was also taught that if you committed a sin, you were just as lost as soon as that happened as you were before you were baptized. Then I was also taught that someone who is in a sinful state can't pray for themselves because God doesn't hear the prayers of sinners, John 9:31. Now wait a minute. You got to be kidding me. So God puts me in a pickle between second and third base and there's nothing that I can do? Yeah, that's a great way to live. No wonder we're losing our kids out of the church. They feel helpless, like they can't ever be good enough. Shame on anyone who would ever teach that. That's not what the Scriptures teach. I understand the Church of Christ. I was taught that the Lord's coming back. And when He comes back, He's either going to get you from heaven, for those who believe you go to heaven when you die. He's going to grab you out of heaven, recreate your body real quick, stuff you back in there, your soul back in there, so that it can rise up out of the ground to be resurrected, and then take your soul back out of there to take you back to heaven. Or substitute Hades. He's going to get you out of Hades, take your soul out of Hades, put you back in your body, and repeat process. That's what I was taught. You want to know something? None of that makes a bit of sense about the resurrection. Here's what does make sense about the resurrection. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, I told you we would do this, so I don't want to leave this undone. There's just way too much. Man, we could go on for hours and hours talking about this, and it's just so liberating to understand this. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. Why does, they don't ever want to talk about the rest of 1 Thessalonians, but let's just go to verse 13. But we do not want you to be uninformed or ignorant, brethren, about those who are asleep, so that you will not grieve as do the rest who have no hope. So this is where they go. They want to scare you. They want to frighten you. They want you to be afraid so that you'll be ready and waiting. Scott Russell, tell me, is heaven and earth always, without exception, used in a literal sense? It's such an easy question. Such an easy question. Then verse 14. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so God will bring with Him those who have fallen asleep with Him in Jesus. Isn't that what I just described? No, it's not really. For this we say to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive and remain until the coming Lord will not precede those who have fallen asleep. For the Lord Himself will descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So we shall always be with the Lord. Therefore comfort one another with these words. And you think that the we is you, that it's Scott Russell and Stephen Whitsitt and Chucky Morgan and Dusty Rose and Tim Ogles. Well, about half of those people don't believe that, but is the we here? Who is it? Is it people in 2021, in the 21st century? Or was it those people that Peter said in 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 14 that they expected to see the earth destroyed and recreated in their lifetime? Boy, they were sure disappointed when it didn't happen. Guess the scoffers were right, huh? No, it did happen in their lifetime exactly the way the prophets prophesied. Now, you also think that those who remain are you. Twice, Paul says that they will be alive at the coming of the Lord. Some of them will remain until the coming of the Lord. Are they still alive? I have actually had people, when I've asked them this question, they felt so backed into a corner, like they had nowhere to go, that they actually said, well, I guess they are. They would rather say, if you don't believe me, ask Trent. He's heard the exact same thing. We've heard it from the same people. They have actually said they're willing to go there and say there are 2,000-year-old Thessalonians still alive, waiting for the coming of the Lord, because they see that that's what that says there, and they can't get around it. They can't believe that it was going to happen in the first century generation. Now, you tell me who's redefining words. It's not the preterist. We're trying to figure out the meaning of them. We're trying to properly apply them and not take them completely and totally out of context. We're keeping them in the Hebrew context. And if you don't do that, you're going to come up with some new age, new plan. Do you want to know why members of the Church of Christ can see baptism as necessary for salvation when others don't? It's because it's plain and simple and clear. They don't have, and this is sad, but they don't have a lot of baggage from understanding. Yes, I said that right. They don't have a lot of baggage from understanding the Old Testament. So all they see is this new concept of baptism in the New Testament. And they say, oh, this is so simple, so easy. We see command, inference, and example, so therefore we must be baptized, which I agree with. But what they don't understand is the Old Testament is full of baptism and prophecy about baptism, and illustrations and types and shadows and so forth. So it's there. And they don't understand that because they didn't study it. And one of the reasons they don't understand about the coming of the Lord is because they've never studied it. And they can't see it. And they don't live by faith. So many people today, the futurist today, lives by sight. It's all physical. Everything is physical. Your physical acts save you. It has nothing to do with your heart, apparently. I never got that one, never understood that one. You've got all these physical things. It's a physical planet. It's a physical resurrection. It's physical bodies coming out of the ground. And you can't find that anywhere in Scripture. You can't find it in prophecy as a type. You certainly can't find a shadow or an antitype anywhere in the New Testament, in the Old Testament, in God's Word. It's simply not there. And yet this is the doctrine that they choose to follow. And it is a doctrine of demons. Yes, it is a doctrine of demons. Okay, well, something here just caught my attention. So let me see. Can any proponent of Max King's doctrine properly define the blood of the atonement? Well, let me ask you this, Scott. Can any proponent of Alexander Campbell properly explain eschatology? There you go. Amen, Roy. It's Phariseeism. This is what the Pharisees wanted everybody to believe. No, the Messiah didn't come, and if he didn't come, he's certainly not coming back. And certainly not in your lifetime. That's basically it. Okay. How much time? I have 6 minutes. How did that happen? Okay. Let me show you something else. Isaiah 65. I left something out of 1 Thessalonians. I'm going to try to use that to close. But I want to show you Isaiah 65. I've done pretty good fighting this cough back so far. Boy, it'll make me cough so bad, then it sends me into sneezing fits and coughing fits at the same time. Not a pretty thing. Okay, so in Isaiah chapter 65, I'm running out of time, so You go ahead and make fun of me all you want. You go back and read the context. I don't have time to do that and exegete all of this. But essentially, they're getting a new name. They're getting a new name, right? What's their new name and when does it come? Verse 17, behold, I create new heavens and a new earth. What is the new heavens and the new earth that is created? Go ahead. What's the new heavens and the new earth that is created? Scott, you better hang in there because I will answer this in 15 seconds or less or thereabouts. But let me get done with this. Scott, you can answer, any of you all can answer this. Somebody just write it in there. What is the new heavens and the new earth that is created, and the former things will not be remembered or come to mind? What is that? What's the new heavens and the new earth? I'm waiting. What is the new heavens and the new earth? Verse 18. But be glad and rejoice forever in what I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem for rejoicing and her people for gladness. What is the new heavens and the new earth? The new Jerusalem. What did we read in Revelation chapter 21 that so many people refuse to acknowledge? Listen to this. And read it again. Then I saw a new heavens and a new earth, for the first heaven, the first earth had passed away. This is Isaiah 65, verse 17, 18. And there was no longer any sea. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, made ready as a bride adorned for her husband. What is the New Jerusalem? The new heavens and the new earth? It's the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. Check this one out. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. We could start at verse 13, but I already did that. But listen to this. Verse 17. Then we, the people in the first century, who are alive and remain, will be caught up together. When? When the Lord comes in the clouds in the air. But notice what he's doing. He's coming in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we always be with the Lord. Therefore, comfort one another with these words. The comforting words was the kingdom was coming in its fullness. The church was coming down out of heaven. Jesus, as victorious ruler, was coming down to be with, and his Father to be with his creation, this new Jerusalem, this church, these ones who want to be with the Lord. Now, listen to this. Listen to this, Revelation chapter. You're just going to keep flipping back and forth here. Revelation 21, verse 3. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is among men. What? Men don't go to the tabernacle comes to men. It's among men. It comes down from out of heaven and dwells with man. That is the New Jerusalem. Now check this out. Verse 10. He carried me away in the Spirit to a great and high mountain and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. In all its glory. It had come in its fullness. Now listen to this. Verse 22. I saw no temple in it, for the Lord God the Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. And the city has no need of the sun or of the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God has lit it, illumined it. And its lamp is the Lamb, and the nations will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their glory into it. And in the daytime, for there will be no night there, its gates will never be closed. Heaven will always be open for those who want to enter the gates. But there will be those on the outside of the gates forever. Listen to this. Verse 26, and they will bring the glory and the honor of the nations into it, and nothing unclean, and no one who practices abomination and lying shall ever come into it, but only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. So forever, The gates of heaven will always be open. They will never be shut. And those who accept Messiah and are added to his body, we know through baptism, both physical and spiritual. And here's another thing. They're always going to be added to that church. The kingdom came. The gates of heaven were opened. Hades was destroyed. So when Jesus said in Matthew chapter 16 and verse 18, he said, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades, it's not hell, the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. What do you suppose he meant? This is exactly what we talked about here. When his church was built, Hades was destroyed, heaven was open, and people could be saved. That's Eden being restored. That's the Edenic restoration. What do you think about them apples? A lot of you don't like apples, especially these apples. But there are some good and honest hearts that do, and they're willing to accept the truth. So you can either follow traditions and try to wait for something that's already come. You can wait for Jesus to be victorious when the scriptures teach us that he was victorious already. You can try to live under that old law, or you can live in the new covenant. What do you want to do? Why would you want to live that way? I don't understand that. The modern futurists twist the words of the Bible. They redefine things. See, whenever someone is constantly harping on another person, another belief or group of people or something, constantly harping on them about this or that, they're usually guilty of it themselves. And they constantly harp on us. Oh, well, these preterists, they change the words, they change the definitions. Really? So we changed the definition of soon. You know, we're a lot closer on our definition to soon than you are, by the way. Soon was very soon when Revelation was written. It was sooner than MacArthur's I Will Return. Soon is not thousands of years, and it doesn't lend itself to that definition at all. Every time this concept of soon is used, whether it's in the Septuagint, however you want to look at it, you want to use it, look at the idea of this being soon in the Old Testament, or even in the New Testament, there's always a timestamp. And if there's not one right there when you're reading it, it's already established. So there you go. Stephen Whitsitt, I said I liked you. I just formally withdraw that. Apparently you're the only one smart enough to be saved, so enjoy empty heaven, just you and God. Anyway, outside of Stephen Whitsitt, we're going to have to call this quits here for the night. Before I getting where I can't I can't suppress this cough long enough, and cough drops don't really work very good. A little, maybe a little. Altoids work good, halfway decent though, but I don't have any. Okay, let's see. Well, maybe there are some watching tonight who don't understand what tacos is. They think it's something you eat. And that's obvious. Okay. My wonderful wife, thank you. Thank you so much. And you all, just I can't beg you enough to continue to pray for Holger and his family at the loss of their son. Oh, yeah, Scott. Okay, I said I would do this. The reason Scott and so many other people do not believe in the blood atonement as the scriptures teach it is because they view everything as physical. Everything is physical. Everything is physical. This will take more than 15 seconds, probably. Did Jesus have to shed his blood? Yes, he did. The physical blood, yes. It was a part of it. It wasn't all of it. So here's a question to help illustrate what this means. Where did Jesus go? Scott, I know you'll never, ever answer this. I know you'll never answer this. But where did Jesus go when he died? My wife knows. She's in there going, I know. I know Tim Ogles knows. I know Roy Runyon knows. And some of the others that are on here knows. Where did Jesus go when he died? You're going to say he went to the grave. Well, I agree with that. What's the grave? He went to the physical grave and his physical body was there, but that was not him. Was that him, Jesus in the tomb? Was Jesus in the tomb? Answer me that. While I get a drink. Amen, Roy. To that, no question. That's obvious. Where did Jesus go? Jesus went to Hades. He went to the Hadean realm. That's 1 Peter 3:19. That's what Peter preached on the day of Pentecost in Acts 2. So, you all have this problem about seeing everything physical. You don't see anything spiritual. And so you've completely divorced this physical blood from the spiritual sacrifice of Christ. You can't see Isaiah 53 as applying at all. You all run to Howard Denham to get his idea, and he's not telling you the truth. I can promise you that. So, if you can't understand the 7 feasts, and you cannot understand the typology of the sacrificial animals and the sacrificial system, you will never, ever understand the type and the antitype in the sacrifice of Jesus. Did Jesus have to shed his blood physically? No question about it. Was that it? Nope. If that's all he did, if all he did was shed his blood physically, he would have been no different. So get ready to blow your lids on this. I don't care. If that's all he did was have to shed his blood physically, and that's it, it would have been no different than the thieves crucified with him. Other than the fact, he was sinless. I guess obviously that accounts for something, but it doesn't account for anything if there is no spiritual component to it. And you all leave that spiritual component out, and you do disgrace, you dishonor the Savior by leaving that out. That's a shame. That is a shame that you do that to him. Here's the thing, Lori White and Scott Russell and whoever else cares. The blood atonement, let me say this again. You will never, ever understand the blood atonement until you understand the 7 feasts and the sacrificial system. You tell us. You guys, all you ever want to do, which I'm just so sick of this, and I'm gonna get done to this, but all you ever want to do is cast aspersions. You are the most. God loves you more than anybody else, and he wants to see you repent and stop disgracing his son. All right, I'm gonna end this. I pray for all you who hate the Messiah and refuse to accept his words. The fact of the matter is he died a physical death, but moreover a spiritual death, to make the atonement complete. Not half with what some people want to tell you, just the blood. It's so much more than that. It's the spiritual element and the physical element combined that make the atonement complete. If you don't think that that's correct, just read through Hebrews. The atonement was for the forgiveness of the sins of the people that were committed in ignorance. You never even really consider that, and that's sad. But we can be saved. Despite what these mainline denominations teach you, the Church of Christ, not ours, we still use the name Church of Christ, but we use that not the way the Church of Christers do. That's for sure. That's the way they use it. It's simply disgusting. It's disgusting, and it's sad. It's very sad. So anyway, that's it. You need Jesus. If you're not baptized into Christ, you're not clothed in Him. You do not have the washing of regeneration, as the Scriptures teach. I would highly encourage you to seek out baptism and be joined to the Lord and begin your walk with Him and simply accept what He says and not what all these other guys over here say. What He says. So we'll see you next week. I'm going to try to get back to the fatal flaws of futurism. Maybe Scott Russell will join me on the program next week, and we'll see if that's the case. Hey, I'll drop that whole program. We'll spend the time with him. I have a feeling he'll not do that, but he's welcome to. So Scott, if you want to do that, hey, let's do it. You got lots of stuff to say here tonight, so let's just do it in an audible way so people can watch and make up their own minds. So contact me, and we'll get that going. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Love you all, every one of you, even the ones who hate me and are just not good people. I still love you. Anyway, I'll see you next week. Thank you all so much, and I certainly do appreciate all the prayers. And please be in prayer for Brother Holker. We'll see you next time.